Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And I mean a warm and round of applause. Welcome back to Karmia's Got Questions Season 2 premiere. We're back. Let me tell you something. It's been too long. In fact, I've been suffering internally without these conversations. So it's good to be back on this normal plane of existence. I'm about to jump out of my seat. I'm keeping my composure for right now. I just want to let you know. I mean, we're on camera. We're getting serious now. You can tell the camera's tilted a little way. I had to capture the top hat in the full frame. Otherwise, I think it's going to look ridiculous. I don't know if you noticed this. Somebody dented my top hat. It's unbelievable. Let me tell you about today's guest. Okay, his name is Denzen Cortez. He's always been a man that's ready to dive into complex issues and face them head on for you. He sets the bar high, at least I think so, and so do many other people, for every other young journalist out there wanting to tell a good story and to tell you the truth, okay? He's got a fantastic name. It may be one of the, I would say, top 19 greatest names of all time. Denzen Cortez, welcome to Karmia's Got Questions.
Thank you for having me, man. That was quite the introduction.
I appreciate you saying that. I worked really hard on that.
That was an awesome introduction right there. I think you hyped me up more than I needed right there.
I
Oh,
thought
man, that
about
was
it.
awesome.
I thought about it so deeply, man. You know, what's interesting about this, Denzen, is I've probably only encountered you in person 2 times. We've maybe had 2 conversations in person. One was at the Cronkite Award ceremony for
I
David
remember
Muir,
that. Mhm.
which, I mean, arguably skyrocketed you into that production intern role that you're in now, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. It's amazing. It's almost like it was meant to be. And there was maybe one other time where I briefly had talked to you while walking around campus. I don't know, but it's great to live from Manhattan. Denzen Cortez, here he is.
No, man, I remember the first time we spoke, and I was at that Cronkite Award earlier this year, and just the way you carried yourself, I could tell you meant business, and you are a shining star at Cronkite yourself. I watched your stuff on the cut and what you're doing, and you know those are the journalists that we need more, especially at the school. So what you're doing is awesome stuff as well. And yeah, I remember when we first met, man, having that discussion after, it was definitely an insightful one, and I'm ready to have more with you.
This is great. This is great. Well, you tell me I'm a man of business then, so I'm not going to be holding back in this interview. It's going to get serious.
Right on.
We're going to get critical. We're going to be calculated. And I want to
Okay.
ask you a big question here. And I like to do this. I like to just bring in an umbrella question that's going to lead us all down these tunnels that we can explore in
Yeah.
who you are and what you stand for. Tell me something, man. Where does this passion for storytelling come from?
I think it began at a very young age for me, man. Age 12, I would say it started, and I've always had this just desire to really know um, what's going on around me. Very curious, curious about things of like, well, why does this happen? Why are these situations happening around this certain time? So I think with that combination, uh, in part with also, I've always kind of loved making videos, and combining those two interests into one, it really just kind of led me naturally into journalism. Um, in addition to initially when I started at age 12, I was a big sports guy. So combining that as well with the curiosity and loving the storytelling of video making, um, I got into the sports realm as far as sports journalism, and then from there, it kind of just snowballed into a bigger thing. And as of now, that passion, that adrenaline still fuels me. I love when breaking news happens because I think it's a privilege as journalists that we are the first to hear about it, the first to know the facts. And we have a privilege and duty to tell the truth and tell the facts to the audience that we're telling to. And that's such a big thing that I don't take for granted and don't take lightly.
It's this desire that you have internally, this constant curiosity to understand what's going on around you. And honestly, I feel like the world could use a lot more curiosity. The assumptions that a lot of people have just based upon the content that they consume every day, I think it limits our curiosity in a lot of ways. And I want to jump into your second, because I did a deep dive on you, Denson. Okay, I don't mess
Wow, man.
around on this show. In your second post, maybe ever,
Yeah.
on Instagram, and it's the second post related to your time at ASU, as far as I can tell. You caption it with this: "The
Oh,
news of today is the history of tomorrow."
yeah.
Here's what I'm curious about, Denson. And maybe you disagree with me, but our attention spans, they've shriveled up in a lot of ways, and our daily consumption of content prioritizes quantity over quality. Do you
Mhm.
ever find it hard to keep faith that the content you're producing as a journalist is having that historical impact or changing people's understanding of the world around them?
I think it's an interesting question you just posed. 'Cause I had a similar discussion with a colleague literally about 2 days ago, and we talked about how our audience now really has a shorter attention span than years previous, where we might only have about 15 to 30 seconds to really get a news across, maybe a minute. And, that really does shrivel and limit our capabilities as journalists to tell a story within a minute. It's really hard. And I'm a big believer of quality over quantity. Um, I much would rather have a story that's 3 minutes long and you could tell it more thoroughly than a 1 minute 30 package. Now I know in national news and other markets, you might only get a minute 30. And it's harder to fit that time span and tell a good story, which it is possible. But going back to your question, it's only getting harder as journalists. How I say we navigate it is just being more concise. Obviously, telling the facts first, because that's the most important thing. And obviously, what I call fluff words of stylistic. How are we, excuse me, how are we going to introduce this person? How are we going to move the story along? That can be changed as the time span goes shorter and shorter. But I think what won't change is how we conduct and tell the news. That will never change, but it's definitely becoming a little shorter with audiences. No, for sure.
All of these individual dynamics in media at large, whether it's journalism, movies, podcasting, it's interesting to see. I feel like I've encountered a lot of people, at least, who
Mm.
are willing to sit down, listen to a 2 hour podcast. Like Karmia's Got Questions. I mean, it's a terrific show. I mean, why wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
sure.
But also kind of be obsessed with this algorithm, whether it's Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok videos, where I just got to get through as much as possible. If my attention isn't captured in that first second, I'm gone. It's
Yeah.
like where is the priority? Because to me, and I believe this for a very long time, I think once we start to reduce down the amount of time we get to tell a story, the appreciation and impact starts to become so limited. If you
Yes.
only have that short time window to really tell somebody about something beautiful, about something dramatic, about something controversial,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking to me because I feel like we have to change that.
Yeah. No doubt. You bring up a great point that I think that unfortunately, in this industry, I think we're starting to adapt to the shorter time spans and shorter attention rates of our audience. Um, but it does lead to what you say. It's like you can't tell the story maybe the best way. It's possible, no doubt about it, but maybe the quality of how we're telling that story starts to diminish each time. For example, uh, right now I did a story where in total frame came out to around 318. I made two versions of that story. There was a 3 minute 18 portion that I enjoyed. It was thorough. Then you went to a 230 package, which would take out maybe a person or two. And then you made a minute 30 package, and it looked completely different from the 3 minute and 18 package because now you're focusing maybe on one topic and that one topic only, rather than going thoroughly through the story. And I think audiences really need that. If anything, if us as storytellers are able to tell the story how it is, rather than trying to adapt to our audiences, the right audience will watch our stuff. Just like how someone will listen to a 2 hour podcast or sit through a 2 hour movie. There are people out there, and the right people will find it.
Yeah. That's interesting that you said so the 3 minute version and
Yeah.
more that you had posted, that's the version you're like, this captures the full tale, what I'm trying to explain. It's important information. I need this all to be presented.
Yeah.
And then you made the second version. Was that did somebody tell you like we got to reduce that down? Like what was the thought process behind
Yes.
creating two versions?
So this was actually at my internship. So someone challenged me and was like, "Hey, great story. See if you could fit it into the World News Tonight time frame, which is about a minute to a minute 15." Um, and they're saying because that's where the time frames that a lot of network stations are going to be. Like, you're going to only get a small frame. So once I edited that story, I didn't publish it, but just seeing it on a timeline, it was a completely different story. It was actually my Gen Z story that I recently did. Um, I was only able to focus on just the student, Emmanuel Anon. And then I mentioned how Gen Z gets their information via social media. And that was just the minute 15 package. It went like that quick. Rather than the 3 minute 15 package, I was able to introduce a character, dive into what the character's, you know, desires are for this upcoming election. I was able to dive into the social media aspect of how we're seeing a lot of young voters getting their information from elsewhere other than cable news. I was able to dive into the swing states, like all these different topics you're able to touch upon more, and it tells the story in a greater essence. But unfortunately, I would say the greater majority of our audiences now, those time spans are getting a little shorter, and not everyone's going to want to maybe sit through a 3 minute package.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to jump into the stories, some of the most I think amazing packages that you've put together on your own as an independent journalist as a part of these different publications. We're going to get into all that. The first one I want to talk about is the story you did in Nogales.
Okay. Yeah.
You went on to capture this uncertainty migrants face and the condition they're exposed to at the border. Talk to me about that experience.
So the way that story came about was actually very interesting. I was thrown on that story at Cronkite News. It wasn't a story I pitched. Um, I was doing this had been maybe early February when this story came about. I'd been pitching stories constantly each week because I was nominated to do the Hearst competition. So I was really looking for a hard story, and the um, managing editor at Conca News, Elisa Adams, threw me on to that story, and I did my research of what was going on at the border. I know that was a big topic, and it still is in our country right now, currently. And I really just wanted to go there and see where the story would take me. I think a lot of times as journalists, we want to script write our story to the best of our ability. That way, once we get there, I don't know if print journalism is kind of similar. but we kind of already want to see, we have already something in mind once we get there. For me to get there, we drove, took about 3 hours, got to the border, crossed over. I really didn't have a story in mind. I kind of let everything come to me. And we met this woman and her daughter, and uh, the faculty member that came with us, Julio Censaneros, who's at Cronkite Noticias, um, spoke with her and said, "Hey, we're doing a story on the migrant situation. Are you a fellow migrant yourself?" And she said, "Yes, I'm coming in." Um, Man, I believe she was more of Central Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. I'm kind of foggy of where she was directly, but we spoke with her, and just hearing her story of, why she was fleeing. She had her husband being threatened by the cartel. That's stuff that, as a journalist, as a collegiate journalist, young in my career, those are the experiences that are very worthwhile. And you're not going to get that studying in a textbook. Being in that situation and asking those questions. Well, what's your dream once you cross over? How long have you been waiting in this asylum process? That story was definitely a big one for me that it just showed me how diverse um you have to be in storytelling, not only to, be able to tell a political story, but also humanize it to this demographic of people that are coming over into this country. Um, and being able to also play a middle ground, I feel, because this is something that one half of America believes one way of the migrant crisis, and then another feels it another way. And being able to just show and humanize a story of, hey, this is real life. That's the intricate part that I learned in that story, how to tell, and that's something that I'm going to take with me moving forward. And I feel journalists that are early in their career can take as well.
That's so like astonishing to hear that you went out there, 3 hour drive, kind of with this rough idea, but then just let the story take
I
you
th-
where it needs to go.
I
That's
think
that's
I think
crazy.
sometimes that's what's needed, man. And it's like, believe me, I've been my script writing process in a story differs from each story. That's something that I've learned. Not each story you can approach the same. Sometimes there's been stories like the Nogales one where I had nothing in mind other than going with the camera, interviewing the people, and you kind of just go back and look at footage, and then obviously with the research you've done, you kind of just start to script the story and kind of in an art way, you kind of sculpt the sculpture. And then there's been times where I kind of already have done my research. I know what shots I need. I know how I want to tell the story, and you approach it that way. Um, but yeah, each story differs, and that story for sure kind of showed me like sometimes you don't have to already have the story in mind. Sometimes the story kind of speaks for itself.
This woman you were talking about earlier who was fleeing the cartel, this was Marisol, right? 22 years
Marisol,
old.
yeah,
Yeah.
Marisol,
And she was a migrant who was fleeing violence and the was staying in this cramped space with other
yeah,
people. I think it's I mean there was so much that was in that package that I thought was incredible, especially for the time that it was put out, given that immigration was such a important issue on everybody's mind. But
yeah.
it's one thing to capture this scene on tape, but it's another thing to try and feel what they're going through. Could you walk me through what you were feeling inside that living space and just talking to people on the ground while you were there?
It's definitely, you see the living space of where she's at, right? It's definitely it humbles you, and it shows you the reality of what people are willing to do to better their lives. This is something that I discussed with a mentor of mine that reviewed this story, and it's something that I think I would have done differently maybe in the story. Um, he he suggested in the story as well that to really understand how they live, a good question that I wish I would have asked is like, hey, do you understand that a part of America um, is not against you uh, wanting to better your life? They just want you to do it a certain way. And asking those questions, I believe, really, I think could elevate the story. Um, but going back to getting the feeling, I think the questions I wanted to ask and the shots I wanted to get, we see a lot of immigration stories. We've seen them on ABC 15, we've seen them on Fox 10, AZ Family. There's stories that have already been done on this issue. The way I wanted to tell it was, okay, how can I show you the living conditions of someone that's willing to do this and risk their life? Because I don't think I've seen a story done by local television like that. They just cover the legislation, they cover where migrants are coming in from. Really taking that angle, I think is what makes that story unique, and being able to recognize where other parts and other stories are lacking and making it unique. That's where I think you could really tell the story in a different light where people could really resonate with.
Back to the beginning of what you were saying there, and I appreciate you breaking that all down for me. It's a very humbling experience. I would imagine, like you're in that situation and you kind of ask yourself, what's the worst thing I've ever been through that could ever possibly reach the standard of which all of these people are experiencing right now? That's what I asked myself when I had watched the package several times. And, when you're trying to capture what that feeling is like at the border for these people who are traveling incredibly long distances to come for a better future, I'm
Yeah.
not blowing smoke, Denzen. I thought you did a fantastic job capturing that there. And in the package, you've got video of these children who I imagine don't really know what the future holds for them.
Yeah.
Is that something that was swirling around in your mind as you witnessed all this firsthand, that these people have some of the most unpredictable futures possible? And while at the same time, I'm only seeing a section of this.
Yeah. I think as a reporter, you want to show the different aspects. And I felt like capturing the children really showed the innocence of how their parents are just trying to make them have a better life. And for them, they don't know any better. When I was speaking to when I showed a camera shot of the daughter and she showed where she slept, it was just a little small area on a mattress. And I just was like, wow. And then she showed me her toys and she was so happy and grateful to have them. And, you know, no smoke at my sister. I have a younger sister, but I have a little sister that has an iPhone and has all these things. I'm like, wow, here's someone that is just grateful to have these little toys. And, and we have people and kids maybe her age here back home that, have the iPhones, have the Sephora makeup. So I have all these gadgets. And, that's the reality, is that they're just wanting to come for a better life. And I felt capturing the children, was really, really important to the story, to show like, hey, these are the future and they're just wanting to build a better future.
Is that a moment which you had captured in this that
Yeah.
kind of sticks with you? I mean, are there experiences that you had down there that you can't really forget, or maybe that you think about from time to time?
No doubt. I tend to think a lot of just how we encountered Marisol and her daughter. Um, because we went to an area where some locals said that's where usually the migrants stay, and we had no luck finding anyone. And I was able to capture it when Marisol and her daughter were walking towards their shack. And I just remember like she said, "Hey, I could do the interview, but it has to be quick. My husband's coming." And she opens the shack, and then we're like, "All right, do you want us to wait?" She's like, "No, we could do it here in my home." I was like, "Wow, this is reality." And that car ride back, you just kind of like reflect, like, "Wow, here I am going back to wherever I'm staying, and then there's someone staying there too." And I felt like that for that story, and as well as the zone story, I felt like that big time.
Yeah, I mean, when you were driving back from going out there to Nogales, like what were the conversations you were having in the car?
Um, yeah, so it was a team of us. So I, fortunate enough, I didn't drive. Nicole, I think her last name's got it. I feel so bad. I'm gonna look it up because I don't want to say it
You
wrong.
got to bring Nicole's name in. Get her full name
Yes,
here,
no,
Denzel.
I'm gonna get her a name. Nicole. I do not want to get it wrong.
This is unbelievable, Denzen. Unbelievable. You're using another device right now during this live show. Millions of people watching right now. Millions.
Nicole Macias. Oh, man. Nicole Macias got away. She drove. And then we had Paloma Rutherford in the back and Kayla Jackson as well that went with us in that story. And I think the discussions back were just like, wow, like this is the reality of so many people that um, we're fortunate enough to tell this story and be upfront. Like not a lot of, I think, students our age know what's going on, let alone a good portion of America. And just, I think, having that opportunity to tell that story was definitely something we all kind of drove back forever remembering.
And like we were talking about before, immigration as a whole, it's a hotly contested topic across the country. One of the leading issues voters cared about in this past election and really continue to care about. You went on to do this News 21 fellowship where
Yeah.
you and a group of students traveled the country, which is really awesome, to report about the state of American democracy. I have a good idea of what was kind of going on, just some of the brief stuff, but I'd appreciate if you broke it down for our audience here. What did you focus on during your tenure with this project, News
Yeah.
21?
Yeah. So, like I said, new or like you kind of mentioned, News 21 featured um, around 25 or so student journalists, and we kind of broke down American democracy. And we really wanted to tell a story that was more in depth, not just what battleground states were going to be voting for who or which counties could we see. And one of the topics that I felt most compelled to tell the story was the behind the scenes work of the people that help run our elections. So me and a group of other journalists from other universities, we decided to do the story on election intimidation and violence towards election officials. And we really focused in on several states, some of them being key swing states that we saw in this election. We covered in Arizona, Ohio. We went to Michigan. We went to California, and I feel like I'm missing one. Georgia. We went to Georgia. And, hearing these stories from individuals that their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, they are just regular individuals. I think people view them just for their occupation, and they're human, just like, excuse me, you and me. And being able to tell their stories and hear some of the things they've been through, it's astonishing. And quite frankly, it's really shocking to hear how us as Americans could be so divided. Um, when in reality, I think we all just have a little bit more in common than what we think. And some of them shared the threats they went through. And just being able to, I guess, give them the platform to share that was something that I'll forever take away, and I think is a great accomplishment that I'm very proud of to be a part of.
What were those threats that they were sharing, the harm that was coming to them?
Yeah. For example, in Arizona, one of the people that we interviewed was Tom Liddy, Maricopa County attorney, and he said that he got as far as bomb threats. He showed us his bulletproof vest that he had to wear, in and outside of work. He said that he spent Thanksgiving with security. Another one was Bill Gates, the Maricopa County supervisor. Um, and to hear what he went through, he had to endure a lot to where it even triggered personal things to where it affected his family. And just hearing those threats, we were able to obtain audio threats given by Maricopa County's recorder's office of some of the threats being sent, as far as explicit things like "we kill you," take back America, all these different things. And it's an unfortunate reality that they had to go through.
Certainly is an unfortunate reality. I mean, I can only imagine what those audio recordings were like. The idea of walking in and out of your workplace with a bulletproof vest on
Yeah.
is that's quite a crazy reality. I mean, the fact that we had gotten I mean, arguably continued to be at this point of divisiveness, of polarization, the controversial nature of politics. But I agree with something you just said, and that's there are more things that unite us than divide us. I believe that in my heart. I really do. I mean, you sit down and have a conversation with somebody that's on the other side of the political spectrum.
Mm.
I feel like there's a 95% chance it's going to be peaceful if you're respectful with each other, if you're open to listening to their ideas, if you're willing to think about things a different way. I think most people are capable of that. I truly do. And something interesting. I During my time at KJZZ, I went and helped cover a Trump rally that was here back in September in Glendale. And I was just there to take photos for some of the reporters that were doing the story on the event. And there was a guy who came up to me after it was over, and he told me, do you feel like bad or embarrassed that all of you lie in the media, that all of you don't like to tell the truth, that you come here and you spread these false narratives, and do you feel embarrassed that we kind of like exposed you, or that all these candidates were saying these things about you because it's the truth? And I was like, wow, this is the first time this has ever happened to me.
I've
But
got I've gotten it a couple
the
times.
first thing I did was extend my hand, introduce myself. Hey, I'm Nick Karmia, reporter with KJZZ News in Phoenix. What's your name? And I feel like just at that moment, he was like, oh, this is actually a human being in front of me. And I was like, hey, at KJZZ, I know for sure we'd love your feedback. We'd love any criticism you'd be able to throw away. In fact, I'd love to give you my contact information, take a look at my stuff. I'd love to hear your feedback on that. The last thing we want to do is not be objective.
Mhm.
We're a really serious outlet, and we want to make sure we're keeping people informed with accurate, correct information. And he shut down a little bit. He shut down a little bit. It didn't become a confrontation. It became a discussion. And
Yeah.
if we're able to do that, no matter how it starts, right? No matter if somebody comes up to you and looks like they're gonna like swing on you or something, I, I'm ready to have a conversation, man. I'm ready to show you that I'm a human being. And on top of that, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, because this is a show about you, Denz. I want to hear about you, but it made me think about that experience. All of the different things that candidates were saying on stage, as soon as there was a line like, all of them back there are liars, they don't want to tell you the truth, and to have an entire arena of people staring at you, shouting vulgarities, whatever. I mean, I wasn't frightened or in fear. I was just so surprised because
Mhm.
I know internally that's really not how those people feel. I don't believe that
Yeah,
because if that one encounter with the guy says anything, it's that if it's you just extend an olive branch, chances are you're going to see the human being first and recognize that we all want a better America, you know?
no
And so
doubt.
that just it really made that situation, based upon what you said, it made me think of that.
No doubt. I've experienced it too of um the fake media comments. And I same similar to you. I extend a hand and I say, hey, I know for sure I'm not dumping all this tuition to tell you misinformation. That's for sure. I wouldn't do that one for my own self. If I were gonna do that, then I might as well not just pursue a degree in being credible in journalism. Um, but also now as journalists, especially young journalists like ourselves, it's important. It's very important that we present the facts and we leave any biases out. Because we're just setting the future for the next person behind us. And that's, I think, audiences are able to read through that. Audiences are able to pick up on the things that um, they're able to read through the noise. And if we're able to cut through it and just present what people are experiencing, I think that goes a long ways.
It certainly does. It certainly does go a long way. And, all I feel like in every single class I've taken at Cronkite so far, and just in my own private life, um, trying to do as much good journalism work as possible, the first line that I feel like is always dropped is there's so much distrust in the media. So many people believe that they don't want to be objective, that they want to bring their bias into the picture, that they don't want to be accurate, that they want to spin a narrative that fits their demeanor, fits what they believe in. We talk about that. We talk about that so much. And I think to a certain extent it is true, but just as you've explained there, it's those one-on-one encounters that are going to turn the tide. It's the grassroots effort of actually understanding why these people believe the media out to get them to not be informative, but to rather spin a tale to their liking. We we have to do that, and it's I think you're doing that actively, and all the work that you're doing. Whether it's showing the human aspect or just telling it like it is, it's a beautiful thing you're doing, and I think it's amazing. Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. No, it's that's all we can do is I guess present the facts, of course, number one, but two, telling it in a way that I think resonates with all of America. Because we're not trying to cater, or at least journalists, a good journalist. I look at those like Walter Cronkite, home base of our school, the way he told the Vietnam War. Um, those are the things that are going to resonate with Americans. And if we're able to tell it in a compelling way that they, no matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, you're going to understand that story. I think that's what people want, and I think that's what people need more from our industry.
absolutely. Tell me about election day coverage at World News Tonight, man.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. What was the feeling in the air?
Oh man, do you want me to start when I got home at 6 in the morning or just from
You
every
pick a place. I'm sure wherever you start, it'll be good.
uh oh man, it's for one, it's been a blessing. It's been an awesome thing to experience here at World News Tonight. Um, but it's definitely been a different experience to see firsthand at the network level, how much preparation goes into excuse me, election coverage. Um, from the intern to all the way to the correspondents, the producers, the makeup people. Like it takes a village. It takes everyone. I was able to see firsthand like what the correspondents have to do as far as they get research binders filled with information of each swing county, swing state. Um, Producers will hand them like information cards that also helps them as well. But just being firsthand to see all that stuff, oh man, it was like a kid in a candy store for sure. I was just trying to soak it up as much as I can. I'm a person that I believe you can learn from just being in the environment. Um, and I felt like I tried grasping as much as I can just being in there.
Was there anything that stuck out to you in particular in that candy store, man? Like, was it like what? I mean, did somebody like tackle you because they just found out Georgia went a certain way, or what
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, no, especially once Georgia released the results, I think just seeing during the commercial breaks, the correspondents speaking with one another, Rick Klein at the big board, breaking down to the battleground counties. We looked at Fulton County and then DeKalb County on the side, and then we checked up more closer to oh man, I'm having a brain fart. It's more on north of the tip of Georgia, more of a Republican county. We're checking all these things, and then it projected to Trump. We're like, okay, wow, this election's turning a little, panning out a little different than what we thought, and just seeing all the correspondence, um, just speaking to the producers. Um, I thought that was so cool. I was tasked with the job of giving the scripts to David Muir. So they would print out the script, and then each commercial break, they'd be like, "All right, Denzen, go give the script." So definitely intern duties for sure. But for me, I would read the script while I'm reading it over. I'm like, "All right, this is what they're going to be projecting or presenting," and handing it over. And I thought that was so cool. I'll forever remember. I handed the script to David when we called President-elect Donald Trump to be our next president. Just being able to like, wow, I'm handing the script of history to David. That's something I'll forever take away.
Wow. So tell me something, Denson. So if you were walking these scripts over, well, first off, would walking be the right way to characterize, or were you sprinting across the
I was probably a mix of speed walking, jogging.
Okay.
Because at the same time, you have other people walking on set, the makeup artists and makeup people. You have producers that are speaking with their correspondents. Um, like Rachel Scott and her producer were speaking as far as the House and Senate race. You had the producer speaking with Martha Raddatz, and she was talking over women voters. Um, and just like, obviously, you don't want to run and knock someone over, but yeah, it was definitely the best analogy I could say is a mixture of Wall Street. Just everyone's just everywhere.
Wow. So if you were holding the script in one hand and you had like a cup of coffee or water in the other, and those
Yeah,
merged, like that would have been it. Like
it would have been it.
ABC.
Also too, I had to grab pizza for David and the correspondence, so I had a pizza in my hand too. So that was a challenge, but something I did too, just to really soak everything in was after I handed the scripts, I would keep my notebook, and this is something I keep with me all the time. And I was just taking notes um, from anything, and these notes feature like the congressional races, little backstories and information that I did, but also what each correspondent did. And I feel like I said, you learn from your surroundings. So for me, it feels like, all right, a correspondent really has three note cards to the side of them, and those note cards featured three states. That's something I'm going to write down because maybe he's focusing on these certain states for a reason. That's something I'm going to take away. Certain correspondents had PowerPoints on their computers for information that I wrote down because I found that very interesting. Like, okay, they have PowerPoints to go through to just kind of help them refresh when they're ad-libbing. Um, those are the things I was holding on the other hand while handing the scripts up to David.
Yeah. So if I got my hands on that notebook and I sold it off to Fox or CNN, like you'd
You
be
could probably, yeah, you could probably sell it off, some of the quirks that the correspondents do and uh, certain tic tacs that they have. But yeah, no, I'm a big notes guy. Any internship that I do or task, you can't go wrong with notes. I think once it helps you learn, and but two, it shows you that you mean business and you take seriously for what you do in your craft.
I'm just saying that information in there, that's proprietary. There's no doubt about that. You better lock that notebook up,
Yeah,
Denton.
it's in the notes.
Absolutely. Well, you've done so much. I picked, these three
Yeah,
experiences from Nogales to News 21 to ABC News.
yeah,
There's so much more to unpack. There really is. I mean, I could spend like 6 hours on that LinkedIn, man, just dissecting every award,
yeah.
every single internship, every project, man. I truly could. But I want to get into you as a human being, man. And my question to you is like, what keeps you going?
Man, it's a pretty deep question right there, man. One, I think values. It goes back to the values and who you are as a person. If anything, Nick, I think New York has provided me the opportunity not even to grow in my career, but also as an individual. Something to me that keeps me going. I'm a big family person. That's a very key core value to me that will never change. Um, very, very close to my parents, my sister, and my cousins that have supported me. Those are people that keep me going, and I just want to make them proud. I'm a first gen college kid, so for me in that aspect, uh, to be the first one to graduate, hopefully, knock on wood, college. That's just something that I hope to make them proud each moment I get, whether that's in my career or not. Um, that's something that definitely keeps me going, but also to being comfortable within yourself is something I've learned as well out here. I think it's easy to base success on the awards you get or what's going on in your life, but in reality, um, I I think success could also be within your personal life, and that's something that's I keep in mind and it keeps me going. I want to strive better in that as well.
Talk to me, man. I mean, I saw that photo of looked like you said, I think it was you were in middle school, your dad
Yeah.
was behind the camera.
Oh
What's the
man.
first? I mean, that's going to go down in history. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
it. They're going to bring that picture up in our textbooks 50 years from now. Denzen Cortez, first news package of his lifetime. Um, the role that they played, man. I mean, the people out there that have this really close relationship with their mothers and fathers. You talk about wanting to make them proud and these other members in your family. Can you speak to the role they've played in your life?
No doubt. My parents have always been very supportive in anything that I've done. Going back to sports, grew up a big sports guy, and they
Franklin
made
High
it.
School. Franklin High
Franklin
School,
High
baby.
School, man. Shout
QB.
out to them. Shout out to Franklin High School in Elk Grove. But they made a lot of sacrifices for me from the very young age. Most kids spent their weekends, no, I'm not going to say all, but most kids, enjoyed their weekends. And my weekends were spent traveling for a wrestling tournament. And my parents were the number one supporters. We flew to Oregon, we flew out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Reno, Nevada. Like we were making all these trips as a family, and that's something that I take away and say, man, they couldn't have done that. Like they could have just not taken me anywhere to go and have these experiences. Another thing too, they made it to every practice, Monday through Friday. They've helped support me, not only emotionally, um, just physically being there as well. Financially, they've helped as well. That's something that I will forever be grateful for, and that's why to me, it's the core value, and that's something that keeps me going is my family. Because at the end of this, they're the people that mean the most, and they're going to be by your side through thick and thin.
It sounds like they've been there every step of the way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in all aspects of your life, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's great to see you show appreciation for them on Instagram alone. I'm sure there's a variety of other ways, but you post these pictures with both of them, and it's amazing. It's great to see because that should never be forgotten in any of our lives. I mean, there's some source of family for everyone, whether by blood or not, and
Yes.
it makes up who we are. It truly does. Um, I'm curious, man. Do you think, and this is going to be a really existential question, but I love asking this to people. Do you think you're here on this earth at this moment of in time for a reason, for a particular purpose?
I believe so. Um, it's interesting you ask that question because I think truly everything happens for a reason. When I first moved out here to New York, it was a rough adjustment. Some personal things in my life, and it was just kind of a rocky start to things. And to me, I believe things come and go. Certain opportunities present itself for a reason, and each thing leads to where you're at in this certain moment. Um, I truly am grateful for the opportunities that have been presented, and I think I wouldn't be here with the combination of the people that have been in my life and have allowed me to think the way I do, um, have a great support system. I'm very grateful for that. But also too, being in this stage in my life right now, I've to kind of go into it, it's kind of interesting. I was mentioning it earlier prior to this interview is that it's the end of the senior year. That chapter in my life is starting to close, and this new chapter of, I guess, adulthood is coming up to where you're trying to establish the young 20s, and it's a bit scary. I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit scary because you don't know what's the right step. You don't know if your current stage of where you're at right now is the right one. And a combination of things. I've grown a little closer in my faith, and it's just taking a step at a time, a day at a time, and trusting a greater overall purpose and that there's something greater overall to this. That's something that I've taken away. But to go back to your question, I think there is. Um, I think I am at this stage for a reason, and I think for any individual where they're at, you're at a certain stage for a reason, but I think it's for a greater purpose down the end.
I believe that too. I believe that for everybody. And as we were talking about before, no matter what kind of work you're into, what your profession is, what you love, it's that passion that's been installed inside you for a reason. No matter what religion or faith or higher power you may believe in or not, I think all of us at this point in time do exist for a particular reason. I do believe that, and I think that's to carry the world to the next stage, to its next chapter, to plant the foundation for the next generation. part of the reason why I had picked this as a profession, because I think it's always changing. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know what the next story is going to be. It's an exciting world to be in. I want to share something personal with you. When I think about the support system that's around me, especially my parents and my sister and other people in my lives, close friends and family, I really connect to the kind of power they've installed into you in your own life through your own support network. Because it reminisces with me. I certainly feel that too with my own. Um, do you ever get this feeling that if you're not spending every moment you have building up to the next stage, putting in the work, every second of every day has to be utilized towards getting you to the success you want.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you feel kind of like you're
Yeah.
failing, like you don't know if you have what it takes anymore.
No doubt. And that's something where I'm working on currently right now. I think for a large part of my life, if I wasn't doing anything, the next step, the next big thing, I was one, letting myself down, and two, letting the people that care most to me down. Um, but what I've started to learn now out here in New York, and I truly feel this is like the first time I'm by myself. Arizona gave me a taste of that, but I have family there still. And what I'm coming to find is that in life, we're not perfect. Um, we're gonna make mistakes. And, you know, it's how you navigate those mistakes and move forward that really define you. How you learn from them and move forward. I think that's the biggest thing. That's where we could learn and have the most growth. And that's something I've taken away now is that like, hey, maybe this happened for this reason. This career opportunity happened for this reason, or maybe I got rejected here, but it's only gonna make me learn for that next opportunity that presents itself. And just know that as long as you feel content within yourself that you're giving it your all, you know what you bring to the table. Um, I think that's truly what all that matters. And it sounds cliche to say, but it is the truth. Once you're comfortable within yourself and know you are making the right steps and trying to make those right steps, whether it's crawling, you're walking, or you're jogging, or you're full on sprinting, as long as you're making that pathway more forward and forward, I think you could be content with yourself that you're heading in the right path.
And what's crazy to me is I believe that to be the truth as well. It's the acceptance aspect that is the most difficult, that is the most challenging, because just like you, I mean, I feel like I need to make especially family members proud. They've given so much. They've been to those sports meets. They've gone to my soccer games. They've stepped in where, I made a mistake and I felt like this was it. My life is over. But they were there through the thick of it and didn't give up and were able to provide the next stage for me no matter what happened next. And so you want to make those people proud no matter what. And you understand that not every single opportunity that comes to you is going to be fully taken advantage of. There's a variety of things that are going on in life, right? Like especially it's hard for me, Denzen, man. Like when people ask me what do you do? Like what are your hobbies? What do you like to do like in your free time? I feel like I never stop writing. I never stop being in front of a camera. I never stop thinking about story ideas. I have a list of things I want to do, whether it's in the documentary space or it's a long form feature piece or whatever. And I want to put all my time towards that. And I know that's not really a healthy thing to do because in
Mm.
the end, there is going to be a moment where you're able to accomplish those things, but that doesn't mean every single moment should be dedicated. That's not like what life is all about. And so, what you're talking about, I believe it to be the truth. It's the acceptance part that's challenging. Is that the when you said you're kind of working on it, is that the part that's in the way for you too?
I think that's you kind of hit the nail on the head of like accepting like, okay, I kind of want to refer to the example that you gave, like you're constantly working. That's something that I suffered, and as of recently, I've kind of gotten better at. Um, when I first moved into New York, my roommate at the time asked me the same similar question. What do you like to do on your hobbies? I'm like, well, I like to watch the news. And she says, well, so you still work? And I said, no, I enjoy watching the news. Like, and she said, well, let me ask you a question. Why do you watch the news? And I said, well, I want to stay informed. She says, okay, well, why? I said, that way tomorrow when I go into work, I know what's going on. She says, so you're still working? And I said, in a way, you're kind of right. In a way, you're kind of right. Um, I think this is something I've been telling myself. Jour Journalism is something I do. It's not entirely who I am. And I too, I do my DCN news and I go and tell stories. I too am constantly thinking of new stories that I could be doing. I think it's also too important in our lives to have that balance and to balance truly what we want to do outside of work and finding those enjoyments in life, whether that's, reflecting, journaling, you maybe still writing, but writing in different aspects of like, okay, in being more introspective. Um, I think that's something that I've come to grips more being out here in New York, and it goes back to finding this different level of success that I'm trying to work on, more success within the personal life rather than so much so, I guess, career wise. And I think also too, once you find that balance, once you're able to feel comfortable within yourself and find that peace and tranquility and the personal aspect, it really does start to trickle down into the career aspect as well.
What we've broken down here, I think it applies to other professions outside of journalism. But I'm curious in particular, whether it's talking to the other production interns at your current internship or just across the media space that you've been in. Do you find it to be this a universal struggle, what we're describing here? Other people experiencing this as well?
No doubt. I've spoken to other interns where they're constantly, I think, working, and I think that's just how the industry is. I could, I think it would be safe to say Cronkite also has that environment as well, where everyone's competing. I encourage people to watch this video done by I believe it's Ike Everard. It's called Dear Cronkite. It's a video that I watched my freshman year at ASU. I think really tells the story well. I think not just to Cronkite, but just journalism in general of how competitive of an industry it is, to where everyone wants to, have the award-winning written story. Everyone wants to have the award-winning video documentary, to where we're just constantly, constantly working and constantly just, I almost feel like trying to one up one another. And it's exhausting. I'm not gonna lie, it's very exhausting. And I don't think that's how we should be kind of moving through life of just wanting to keep up with the Jones and one up a person. If anything, we should be really celebrating these great stories of being able to be a service to the people. And each person I talk with struggles within their own way of just having to deal with that. I think because it's just such a competitive industry that everyone's almost kind of scared to let off the gas pedal in a bit.
I I agree with you. There is that competitiveness in the air, especially at Cronkite and independent newsrooms as well. And it takes away this sense of being a part of a team. I mean, in the end, we're all a part of the same industry. And yes, like you said, everybody wants to be an award-winning journalist, not just for the merit, but for the impact of the story, to be heard across the world as the one who broke this story that informed people, that changed the way people think about their lives, to change the way they think about the world around them. We all want to be responsible for that. And I think we should hoist as many of ourselves up as possible to achieve that standard. I consider this a team sport, whether you're a part of a newscast or you're inside the studio, or maybe you're out with one other person trying to put together a package. Maybe you're sharing the byline on something. You should want the same kind of success for someone else as you do yourself. You
Yeah.
do, especially in an industry that is rapidly changing, that is trying to catch up with the digital space, right? You'd think we should all be in this together when so many newsrooms across the country are dying financially. They
Yeah.
are. And that's not even taking into account news deserts that don't have any coverage, that don't have the ability to actually document and provide that historical impact, as you caption in this post of yours. It's crazy, and I that's the thing I really want to hit home at my last year on Cronkite. Is this is a team sport at the end of the day, and I'm gonna give my blood, sweat, and tears to make sure somebody else lands a great story just as much as I'd want them to do for me. It's so important, especially now.
And I mean, I self-respect and self-introspect, and I feel felt to that competitiveness as well, to where um I was one of those reporters. I was seeing who was doing who. I'm like, all right, how can I outdo this? And it really is important, and I stress it now, like it is a team sport. It takes a village to do what we do. Um, from the producers to the writers to the reporter, like it is a team sport. And I really do encourage people to watch that Dear Cronkite video. I think it awesome job on how they did that video, because it really does capture how our industry is. But if we're able to change it, I think it'll only benefit people within the career aspect, but also I think in their personal lives as well.
Going back to you here, Denzen, your legacy, man. I know it's really early to be start thinking
Yeah.
about that. I would imagine just after the conversation here, you might actually think about it quite a bit. I mean, actively thinking about what kind of content you're putting out in the world, what kind of image you're representing. I'm curious, man, when it's all said and done, and that's a long ways away,
This,
what do you want to be remembered for?
that is a question that I probably will think about now more than now. But
You're welcome. You're welcome.
yeah, big question, Nick. Something I want to be remembered as in my legacy. One, I think if this is something important that I want to say, and I'll probably get to the answer, is that all these awards, all these career successes, these Hearst Journalism Awards, all these opportunities, they won't be buried with me when I'm gone. What will be around is how people remember how I treated them, how I conducted myself. And I just hope I hope the legacy I leave is that, one, a legacy that reflected on kindness, and I'll do two parts, personal side and journalism side. At least for journalism, speaking, just a person that got to the truth, showed all aspects on all sides, um, showed able to cut through the noise and go to the story. I think on the personal side, a person that just was always curious, wanting the best for others, um, selfless. I think I think we need to be more selfless in this world. Um, I think a lot of times we try to think for our own benefit, but if we're selfless, man, I think we could do wonders with our just our fellow neighbors, but just everything. That's hope that I could be remembered as.
These principles that you outline, man, I think they're principles that everybody should try and live up to. I mean, especially that selflessness part. Um, something like when I had transferred here from community college,
Mhm.
what happened and it's College of DuPage. I mean, you shouted out Franklin High School, so
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
gotta
different
shout it out, man.
level institution, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, there were so many people in our generation, our age demographic, who treated, I feel like every experience or maybe every classroom that they had walked into for their course as just like a revolving door situation. I go in, I do what I have to do, what's required of me, and then I get out. And it, it, well, it kind of pissed me off, but it deeply saddened me
Yeah.
because just in the brief interaction I had with you at the Cronkite Award ceremony, or which you called an insightful conversation. So I'm going to quote that. It turns into something like this.
Yeah.
And I think this is a terrific conversation that we've been having. And whether or not you consider going to the ceremony an extracurricular activity or just an event or whatever, being able to reach out to somebody, extend your hand, introduce yourself, digging into the weeds a little bit beyond what's expected of you, I think is an expectation that's become a little lost, especially among our age demographic. And I don't completely blame people because, you graduated in 2021, so did I. COVID was hell on earth. I mean,
Yeah.
online classes. I felt like senior year was a blur,
Yeah,
horrible. I
but
mean, seriously, garbage, right? And I think that destroyed a lot of people's self-confidence. I think it limited their ability to go up to others and be free and to speak and not be afraid to engage strangers. Um, but we got to jump out of that. And
yes.
I think right now is the time to do that, especially when there's so much going on in the world, when the barriers are so low. And I'm saying that especially to journalism. Something that you said to me on that afternoon or night or whenever it was at the ceremony that has stuck with me during my time here at Cronkite and elsewhere is you don't need to be a part of a publication to call yourself a professional. If you go out and find a story that you want to tell, you can find the means necessary to tell it. Because anybody can start an Instagram, can start a YouTube, can start a TikTok, to start a podcast. Nobody told me how to do this. You could investigate it on your own and tell the stories you want to tell without having somebody else say to you it's okay to do so because now you're a part of my team. You can do this. Anybody I think can do this if they put in the time and effort and they have the heart and they have the dedication. There's a lost feeling of that in the air and it bothers me, Denzen. And I'm curious if you agree with me or not.
As far as the willing to go out and I guess do the hard work and
Do
apply
what
themselves.
do what's beyond expected of you.
I would agree. I think a lot of people for one expect certain things to kind of be rolled out for them. I think other people just kind of don't know how to apply themselves to certain things. Um, when I said anyone could go and just do it, it truly is like you can go and find that story. And I won't even use it in journalism terms. If you want to be a business entrepreneur, all you got to do is have the vision and apply yourself. Now, granted, there's some external factors I'm sure that goes into it, but it doesn't discredit you the will and work ethic that's needed. Um, you can't go to CVS Pharmacy and buy work ethic for $4.99. That's something that comes out of you And
Wow, I'm gonna quote that. I like that.
yeah,
Go to
that's something that you
CVS.
can't buy. That's something that's instilled.
It's not even in clearance. I mean, there's no
Not
way.
in Clarence.
Not possible.
That's something that comes from within, and I think a lot of people just maybe have it. They just don't know how to get it out of them. And I would agree with you that more people I think need to use the surrounding sources that they have. Um, it would be very naive for me to say everyone starts on the same playing field and just go do it. Like I understand certain people's situations, someone's a little more you know has a better opportunity, maybe some individuals, but I guess that work ethic was something that, you know, like I said, you cannot go and find. You just have to channel it from within.
And I think you've channeled that quite nicely. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful. I've said the word beautiful maybe, I don't know, 30 times. It's a great word. It's a great word to use. No doubt about it. Nobody's going to argue with me there. From
Yeah.
coast to coast, Denzen, you've
Yeah.
told stories. You have. You traveled all over, and are you 21 or you're 22?
21, going to be 22 in what's November, December, January, in 3 months, 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're just getting started, man. You're
That's
just
what
getting
that's what
started.
everyone tells me. They're like, "You're young." And I'm like, "Man, it kind of goes back to what I said. It's the foundation blocks to this new chapter, and it's a bit apprehensive at times, but yeah, it's sometimes I have to kind of scale back and be like, "Hey, I am just 21 years old. I'm still navigating life like every other 21-year-old. I'm bound to make mistakes, and but I'm not going to make those mistakes moving forward. I'm going to learn from them, and each day you kind of just get a little wiser."
Well, I'll tell you something, Denzen, you did not make a mistake coming on this podcast because you've shared messages of perseverance, of putting yourself out there, not being afraid to go after the stories that you want to tell the most. Like I said, from coast to coast and down to the border, you've been in so many places. You're just getting started, and it's amazing to see what you've done so far. Is there a final message that you'd like to leave the millions of people watching? Denzen Cortez, here he is, live on Karmia's Got Questions, the season 2 premiere, kicking us off into
Final.
who knows what. I mean, this is gonna be a crazy season, Denzen. It's gonna
Yep.
actually be insane, man.
We have a lot of news to cover, man, and it's only going to get even more crazier. So I will say this, man, one that comes to mind. It's a quote from I believe Franklin Roosevelt. Um, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. You are bound to make mistakes in life, whether that's career uh, or personal life. I think how we navigate them and learn really defines us. And, you know, moving forward, what's the right steps? What are the right things that we want to take? That's something that I think is very important that people remember too. I think too, um, very cliche to say, but I think it's the truth that if you have something in your mind, um, work on applying how to get to that thing that you want to be. If you want to be, a good doctor, or you're studying to be in medical, how are you going to apply yourself to have good study habits? Some of the sacrifices that you're going to have to make to become and reach that goal. If you want to be a lawyer, like what are the sacrifices? What are the extracurriculars you're going to have to take to be there? Just learning to know how to apply yourself and to make those dreams come true. And I think no dream is big. Um, a oh man, what's it? A goal. Oh man, please. let me
This is
real
like the
quick.
second time you've been
The
using
second time, but I think
outside source.
this one will be a good one.
Oh God.
A goal. I saw this on YouTube, and I do agree with it. A goal without action is just thought. A goal without action is just thought. So those are the two things I'll leave with, that hopefully your audience could resonate with. A smooth sea never left. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and a goal without action is just thought.
Denzen, to say the very least, you've inspired us. You brought in some great, great final notes to end on here. I appreciate you joining me for the season 2
Amen.
premiere of Karmia's Got Questions. Making time from Manhattan, live Denzen Cortez. It's been great. I'm excited to I when's the next time I'm gonna see it? Can I see you sometime? Can I fly out there? Could I?
Oh, I'll tell you this. Right now they're going through spring internship applications. They threw my hat in the ring, so I this internship ends in January. So I don't know if I'll be back in Phoenix. The plan is I'll be back for the spring semester. However, they extend me, then I'll be finishing out senior year here. So right now we're on the cutting edge of like seeing where everything goes, but it goes back to having that trust and faith that, things will happen for a reason. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Ladies and
man.
gentlemen,
But I appreciate you having me on. This is awesome.
yeah, no,
You're
I'm
you're
glad.
definitely killing the game for doing this and having these people on, like, man, kudos to you. And this is just it's awesome seeing journalists like yourself do this. It fulfills me, and it makes me happy to know that there's people out here in this industry that truly care and are passionate about their work.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. From everybody watching from across the globe, this has been Karmia's Got Questions season 2 premiere. We're back. Denzen Cortez kicked us off. It's gonna be an exciting road. I can't even talk about it too much. I don't want to spoil anything. It's been great. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you and everybody else listening. This has been Nick Karmia and Denzen Cortez. Have a great rest of your day.